Do you have any idea how many lives were almost ruined today? The brightness of the day outside through the window felt incongruous with the darkness in the room. The trees swayed gracefully, their leaves undulating in sync with the wind, unaware of the storm brewing within these four walls. Chloe swallowed hard, each word tasting of copper. What did you expect? To waltz in and take everything without any consequences. In the corner of the room, a half-finished cup of coffee sat forgotten, its surface cooling as time passed, a metaphor for their own stagnant exchanges. Othello folded his arms, the lines of his suit accentuating the sharp angles of his body. Manipulation? I thought we were partners, Chloe. Partners don't lie to each other. She shot back, whirling to face him finally, her emotions unraveling like a tightly wound ball of yarn. You've been keeping secrets. His expression flickered, a mix of hurt and frustration etching deeper into his features. I had my reasons, Chloe. You think I enjoyed being the villain? He stepped closer, and she instinctively took a step back. You don't know what it's like to carry something like this. Don't I? She spat, clenching her fists by her sides, fingernails digging into her palms. You think I don't know sacrifice? You turned your back on my family when they needed you. You were supposed to be different. His jaw tightened, the air thickening between them like the impending rain clouds outside. I didn't have a choice. Well, she countered, the bitterness wrapping around her words like barbed wire. Neither did I. Their stares held a volatile mix of yearning and anger, like opposite ends of a magnet that were forever pulled toward one another yet never touching. The silence stretched, taut like a plucked string, until the raucous laughter from outside broke the suffocating tension. A group of friends from the neighborhood strolled past, their voices blending with the subtle melody of a street performer's guitar down the lane, a conscious reminder of the world beyond this moment. I've heard them talk about you, Chloe said quietly, her defenses lowering, just a fraction. They think you're some sort of savior, heroic. Are they wrong? Othello's brow furrowed, a genuine edge of inquiry piercing through the previous hostility. Maybe, she breathed, the weight of their shared history pressing heavily against her chest. But they don't know the truth. Then let's tell it, he urged, stepping closer again, a wave of warmth crashing against her guarded resolve. Let's unravel everything. Maybe we can rewrite this. The electric hum between them crackled in the air, the gravity of their connection palpable. Chloe closed her eyes briefly, as if trying to find courage in the shadows. And if rewriting means losing everything else, it means rebuilding, he replied softly. When she opened her eyes, all she could see was the reflection of her past hurt in his dark gaze, a mirror to their shared pain. I'm not sure I can afford to trust you again. Then let me earn it, Othello pleaded, a note of vulnerability spilling through his bravado. I'll show you how far I'm willing to go. Outside, a raindrop splattered against the window pane, followed by another, more insistent. The heavens began to weep, each drop mirroring the turmoil within. You have no idea what trust costs, Chloe murmured, caught between daring to hope and shielding herself against potential ruin. As the rain intensified, beating against the roof in an echo of their tumultuous hearts, Othello reached for her hand. It's going to be a long conversation, but I will be here every step of the way. Let's not make any promises we can't keep, she replied softly, the sound of her resolve cracking like fragile glass. He hesitated, their hands hovering, then finally intertwined, and Chloe felt the rush of unresolved desires entwine with the tempest of betrayal. The storm outside seemed a fitting backdrop for the storm brewing within. Scene 22. Seeking forgiveness. The rain drummed steadily against the window, casting a pallid light through the dimly lit room. Chloe stepped in, her shoes whispering against the hardwood floor, and for a moment the world outside faded into a murmur. Do you ever wonder if we were meant to meet again? Othello's voice emerged from the shadows, low and steady. He stood by the fireplace, the flickering flames casting a warm glow across his features. Chloe clenched her jaw, the weight of her resolve battling with the vulnerability bubbling just beneath the surface. We're not children anymore, Othello. Those days are gone. Are they? He turned, an arching brow lending skepticism to his expression. The man who had once seemed invincible now wore weariness on his handsome face like an old garment. She took a step closer, observing the way the golden light danced in his dark eyes, igniting something deep within her. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've had my share of mistakes, but I can't keep living in the shadow of the past." Othello's shoulders tensed, a momentary flicker of pain crossing his face. "You think I don't know about mistakes, Chloe? About navigating a world that seems intent on tearing at the seams of what you believed was true?" Their gazes locked, the air between them charged with unspoken memories and unresolved tension. Chloe leaned into the vulnerability, planting her feet firmly. "I came to apologize, not for the mistakes, but for the silence that followed them. You don't owe me anything." His voice held a raw edge, though a flicker of something softer peeked through. "No, I really do." She took a steadying breath, boldness edging out uncertainty as she approached him. "For so long I've harbored resentment, and it's time to let it go. Can't you see I'm trying to reach across?" His expression softened perceptibly as he regarded her, shadows shifting in increasingly intimate forms. "It's a dangerous thing, reaching across that chasm," he warned, albeit with a hint of longing in his tone. "Dangerous or not, it's the truth I crave," she replied, stepping nearer until only a breath separated them. Chloe didn't flinch. She leaned into the restless energy hanging in the air, the remnants of both tension and yearning spiraling between them. Just as Othello opened his mouth to respond, a loud crash echoed from outside, a commotion that shattered the moment. Both turned instinctively, a foreshadowing of something unraveling beneath the surface. But as the noise faded, the distance they had created drew even smaller. "Chloe," he began again, hesitating in a way that danced tantalizingly with the moment, "there are some things we can't simply forget." "No, but they can shape us into something better. What if I want to try?" Her azure gaze bore into his, intense and unyielding, as if she were untying the knots that bound them both. Silence enveloped them, thick with possibility. Othello stepped forward, the wisps of breath between them increasing, mixing together in an intoxicating promise that sent shivers racing across her skin. "And what if I want to hold on?" "I once thought holding on meant ignoring the past," Chloe murmured, her heart pounding audibly in the stillness. "But now I see it's learning from it. It's about seeking forgiveness and weaving a new narrative." "The past is a tricky thing," he responded, his voice dipping lower, each word unfolding like a tender caress. "It can twist in the light, and we can untwist it together, if you let me." She reached out, her fingers brushing against his sleeve, the electricity sparking between them, igniting a cautious optimism. Othello's breath hitched at the contact. He looked down, a flicker of vulnerability in eyes that had always kept their secrets locked away. With a final, potent moment of hesitation, he cupped her chin gently, tilting her face toward him. "Sometimes the embrace of forgiveness can be more fierce than the grip of hatred," he murmured, their breaths mingling, warmth spilling into that intimate space. Chloe held her breath, anticipation mingling with fear as they swayed toward an inevitable truth, the tension palpably wrapping them together. "Then let's be fierce together." And in that chill of the rain-slicked afternoon, surrounded by memories they could no longer ignore, it became clear the reinstatement of their bond was merely the beginning. Scene 23. The Rising Jealousy. The soft hum of the city vibrated beneath Chloe's feet as she leaned against the sun-drenched railing of the balcony, her heart racing from the buzz of the evening. Othello stood just a few feet away, his back toward her as he spoke animatedly with Marcus, his childhood friend. The warm air was thick with the scent of blooming gardenias, mingling with the distant sounds of laughter and music from a nearby street performance. "And that's why I think the merger is solid," Othello asserted, gesturing with hands that seemed to command attention and respect. His voice was rich and assured, leaving little room for doubt. But even as he spoke, Chloe felt the weight of his presence pressing heavily against her chest. "Is that so?" A playful voice broke through the air, dripping with familiarity. It was Imani, a sprinkle of mischief lacing her tone. "I remember when you said the same thing about Jaden's investment. Didn't that come crashing down spectacularly?" She stepped onto the balcony with an effortless poise, her smile radiant yet sharp enough to cut through the tension. Othello turned, momentarily blinded by the sunlight hitting his face. Recognition flickered in his eyes, and Chloe felt an inexplicable pang in her heart. Imani's laughter had always been a melody he cherished. "Imani!" he exclaimed, genuinely surprised, yet somehow too relaxed, as if having a former flame pop back into the picture was merely a pleasant coincidence. "What a surprise!" Chloe's nails dug into the railing, the wood rough beneath her fingertips as she willed her emotions to settle. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They had just begun to traverse the delicate path towards something new together. Imani stepped closer to Othello, her cocktail swaying in hand, the way the light caught the glass, turning the liquid into a radiant jewel. "I heard you were in town and had to see for myself if the infamous Othello Huxley still knows how to charm a room," she teased, punctuating her words with a wink that seemed to rent the air between them. Chloe coughed, a tiny sound, almost indiscernible in the evening clamor. "And yet you did not predict I would also be in town?" Her voice was sharper than she intended, a flicker of jealousy tiptoeing dangerously close to the surface. "If only I had known, I would have brought my best gossip," Imani retorted, swirling her drink as she surveyed Chloe with both curiosity and amusement. Marcus, ever the peacemaker, jumped in, eager to redirect the moment's intensifying heat. "Chloe, have you seen Othello's new project? It's causing quite the stir." "Not yet," she said, forcing a smile and trying to ignore the way her heart clenched. "But I'm sure if it's anything like his past endeavors, it'll be a disaster turned miracle." "Chloe, you're nothing if not dramatic." Othello grinned, yet the flicker in his eyes hinted at an underlying tension. Had he sensed her jealousy? But before he could reply, Imani interjected, "Dramatic or not, Chloe knows how to make a point. Isn't that right, Othello?" The way Imani leaned toward him made Chloe's skin itch uncomfortably. "That depends on your definition of drama, doesn't it?" Othello said, his gaze flicking between the two women, the warmth of his voice seemingly cooling under the scrutiny. "Traditionally, I might say a double act creates more intrigue." Chloe crossed her arms, a defensive barrier between her and the laughter that arose within her. "Then I suppose we're both performing for an audience," she shot back, earning an approving nod from Marcus, but puzzled looks from Othello and Imani. Suddenly, the air shifted and tension became palpable. Enough games. Chloe stepped forward, willing her heart to beat at a calmer pace. "What do you really want, Imani? Is this your latest ploy? Flying up the competition here?" Just as the words exited her mouth, Othello's features darkened, flashes of his earlier confidence replaced by something heavier. "Imani's just being friendly, Chloe. Don't conflate that with ulterior motives." "Why don't you tell her about the last time you two were just friends?" Imani smirked like a cat bringing a mouse to a feast, and Chloe felt her composure beginning to unravel. "Imani," Othello cautioned, his voice dropping slightly, but there was an edge to it now, a firm line drawn across which Chloe felt pulled. There was no going back. Chloe inhaled sharply, her mind reeling. Was there more to their history than she'd known? As laughter turned to sharp, air-filled silence, she realized that all she wanted was Othello's unwavering gaze, yet the shadows of his past loomed larger than ever. "Of course, you can't keep something like that quiet forever," Imani quipped, with a triumphant glint in her eye. "Othello," Chloe began, but the air thickened, an unspooled tension woven deeply into their shared stares. As the distance between them began to crumble, she felt a pull, a chaotic desire to close the space and confront whatever unsaid truths lingered in the air. Then he stepped toward her, bringing an electric energy that enveloped her senses, blurring the lines of companionship and something more. "Maybe it's time we changed how we tell our story," he murmured, inching closer until hesitation swirled into something dangerously intimate. The world faded away, and in that moment, it was only the two of them, their breaths mingling near, lost in uncharted territory stirred by jealousy and longing. "Just tell me the truth," she whispered, the soft heat of vulnerability igniting the air between them. "Chloe." But his words caught on the edge of uncertainty as they dwell on that infinitesimal space before realization. And before the distance turned into chaos, before jealousy could consume them, their lips met, a collision of past, present, and a promise lingering in the air, fading to black. Scene 24. Visions of the future. Chloe Carver stood at the expansive window of her city apartment, the morning sun filtering through sheer curtains that caught the light like delicate threads. Outside, the city pulsed with life, a contrast to the chaos that simmered within her heart. Each honking car and distant shout felt like a chisel striking at the stone of her fragile resolve. Her thoughts drifted dangerously close to Othello Huxley, the man who danced tantalizingly on the edge of her memory. As reflections of their past together flickered in her mind, the ache of longing became palpable, almost tangible. A few paces back, she clenched her jaw, feeling the tension coil through her muscles. Could it be possible for someone like Othello to make room for her shattered dreams? A future with him, however reckless the notion felt, ignited a fire within her that raged against the chill of betrayal. She hesitated, fingering the cool glass of the window, caught between yearning and self-preservation. In that moment, she envisioned them together, her insecurities dancing in the backdrop of their undeniable chemistry. Every shared glance felt electric, a silent promise laced with hope. Laughter echoed in her mind, those stolen moments when the world faded, making way for the exhilarating closeness that drew her to him. She could see them walking hand in hand through bustling streets, his laughter blending with her own as they navigated life's little absurdities, brushing against challenges that had once threatened to tear them apart. A sudden knock at the door snapped her back into the present, disrupting her daydream. Chloe's heart raced, a quickening pulse of anticipation and anxiety. She opened the door to find Othello, his tall figure framed against vibrant light. He looked different today, unwound yet intense, with a confidence that seemed to fill the entire room. His gaze caught hers, lingering, as if the air around them had thickened into something rich and unspoken. "Chloe," he started, stepping inside. "I need to talk about what happened last night." The words hung between them, heavy and electric. She held his gaze, a tangle of emotions swirling in her chest. "What do you want to talk about, Othello? You know everything's complicated, especially for people like us." His jaw tightened, the muscle flexing in response to her words. "You think I don't know complicated? I've navigated more hell than you could imagine." He took a step closer, the space between them shrinking, filling with potential. "But standing here with you, I see a future, something we could build together, if you'd let me." Chloe's breath caught in her throat. A warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the sun filtering through the curtains, yet the doubt prickled at the edges of her mind. "What about my family? What about what you did?" she questioned, her voice barely above a whisper, an echo of her turmoil. He moved forward, bridging the distance boldly. "Chloe, our past doesn't have to define us. If we let it, sure, but I want to fight for something brighter." His intensity was magnetic. She could almost visualize the future he painted before her, so enticing that it felt like a warm embrace. A flicker of warmth ignited between them. She noticed the subtle embrace of his cologne, a blend of cedarwood and smoke that was unmistakably him. Her senses heightened, the sweet, soft notes of it wrapping around the raw tension of the moment. "Fight for what?" she asked, a challenge veiled in vulnerability. "You, me, this opportunity. If we can survive all the storms, I believe we can create something real." His gaze softened, a vulnerable side breaking through the armor. "Can't you see it? You can't just gloss over the damage, Othello," she replied, her voice rising. Yet even as she spoke, Chloe felt her defenses cracking. "That dark past can't just disappear because we want it to. Maybe it's time we acknowledge it together." He stepped closer again, a silent plea in his eyes. The very air between them vibrated with palpable tension, the emotional landscape shifting effortlessly as their worlds collided. Chloe inhaled deeply, her heart racing, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "And if it all goes wrong?" The question hung, weighty and real. "Then we fight again," he answered firmly, determination lacing his words. "But I'd rather fight for you. You're worth it." In that electrifying moment, she saw the potential of their futures intertwined, blurred contours drawing closer, almost inevitable. Suddenly, their barriers felt interchangeable, and ambition wove a narrative deeper than she ever expected. Would she dare step forward and embrace what could be? As she faced him, something monumental held fast in her chest, a flicker of courage ignited by the intensity of his gaze. A new chapter unfurled before her, a juxtaposition of dreams and risks that beckoned her, urging her to choose. Maybe, she whispered, the weight of potential heavy as the sun cast its glow upon them, blurring the lines between fear and future. Scene 25. Unexpected alliances form. A soft breeze whispered through the partially opened windows of the abandoned warehouse, carrying with it a sense of tension that pervaded the air. The light of the late afternoon sun streamed in, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor, illuminated by the dust particles caught in its golden embrace. Othello Huxley leaned against a steel beam, the muscles in his arms taut with anxiety, as he stole a glance at Chloe Carver across the room. "Why now, Othello?" Chloe's voice sliced through the silence, cracking like a whip, her eyes glinting with a fierce resolve. "Why didn't you tell me the truth about everything?" Othello shifted his weight, clenching his jaw. "What good would it have done, Chloe? You don't want to hear it." His voice was low, almost pained, but his posture remained guarded. "I deserve to know," she shot back, her voice smooth like silk but laced with an unyielding fire. "Our past isn't some dusty old book to be ignored." A moment hung delicately between them, thick and fraught. In that silence, the weight of unspoken emotions loomed over their heads like storm clouds, ready to break. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted them. Several figures burst through a side door, their intentions unclear, but their energy raw and electric. Among them stood Idris, a formidable presence, known for his connections and sharp wit. "Just thought you'd like a change in company," he said, flashing a grin that did little to relieve the tension. "What are you doing here, Idris?" Chloe demanded, her annoyance pulsing through her body. "Just figured this little hostage situation could use a bit of excitement. You think I'd miss out on the drama?" Idris shrugged casually, as if oblivious to the gravity of what was at stake. "Let's focus," Othello interjected, stepping forward, eyes narrowing. "This isn't a game." "Aren't you the one who made it personal?" Idris shot back, his laughter ringing loudly as he gestured broadly for the others to join. "Surrounding yourself with the good and bad while pretending you're the hero?" Chloe crossed her arms, sparking with indignation. "This isn't helping, Idris. We're bound by more than just nostalgia. There are real stakes." "Yeah, like how you're willing to take that coward's path," Idris taunted, nodding towards Othello. "You think he has any real intention of making things right?" The tension thickened, hanging heavy among the newcomers who shifted uncertainly, unsure whose side they were meant to be on. As the argument unfolded, laughter echoed from a small group in the corner. There, Maya and Nathan engaged with the others, their conversation flowing with effortless charm as they shared stories from their latest escapades, oblivious to the storm brewing a few steps away. "With all of this drama, who's got the popcorn?" Maya quipped, her infectious laughter cutting through the heavy air, momentarily distracting the group. "Popcorn?" Nathan asked, pretending confusion as he leaned against a nearby crate. "I thought this was a serious hostage situation, not a late-night movie-choosing dilemma." As they laughed, Chloe glanced back at Othello, her heart in turbulent flux. "It's not just your past, Othello. It's our future, or what was supposed to be. You may have salvaged some of your reputation, but what about mine?" The laughter from across the room dwindled into silence as the gravity of her words set in. With a sharp inhale, Othello stepped closer. "I don't know how to fix what's broken, Chloe, but I can try if you let me." A crackle of vulnerability washed over her, and the sincerity in his voice nearly unraveled her resolve. "How can I trust you when your history is marred with betrayal?" "Because I'm here now," he said, leaning in as the noise of their friends faded into an intimate hush, their gaze locked, radiating a complicated blend of longing and pain. Just then, the tension in the room shattered like glass as the group shifted, positioning themselves not just behind Chloe, but as a force united for something greater. "Unity," Idris shouted, raising a fist. "Let's take this chaos and channel it." As laughter and camaraderie forged an unexpected alliance, Chloe found herself caught in a moment of warmth. The path to healing lay ahead, path lined with confrontations, confessions, and the uncertain journeys of their pasts. "Perhaps change is what we truly need," Othello murmured softly, his voice just above a whisper, barely cutting through the noise of the bubbling hopes ignited around them. Chloe nodded, her heart racing as the realization washed over her. In a world filled with lies, perhaps this time it was worth bridging the distance. Let's get to work. Scene 26, Open Confessions. The dim light flickered above the group huddled together in the corner of the abandoned warehouse, the air caught between the scent of damp concrete and the metallic tang of fear. A crowd of 12, pressed tight, faced the daunting reality blurred by time and desperation. There was a tightness in the atmosphere, like the winding of a clock before it strikes. Othello Huxley leaned against the cold brick wall, arms crossed and jaw clenched, taking in the chaotic scene. His eyes flicked from one hostage to another, sleeping bags and makeshift seats cluttered around them. The low hum of whispered conversations filled the silence, interspersed with the occasional scuffle and hushed laughter that felt too loud against the backdrop of tension. Anyone want to share who they're missing? Kelly, a mischievous, bright-eyed woman in her early 30s, broke the burdened silence, her tone lightly teasing. I know it's not a picnic, but let's keep things interesting, shall we? Right, because sharing our heartbreak will distract us from the fact we're being held hostage, Marcus scoffed, rolling his eyes. His dark hair flopped as he shook his head, but there was a glint of amusement dancing beneath his furrowed brow. Chloe Carver sat with her back straight, her expression a mixture of confusion and trepidation. Her heart raced, bumping against the heavy silence that lay like a burden on her chest. She narrowed her gaze at Othello, who shrugged at Marcus, dismissing him. Because what else can we do? Kelly pressed on, intentionally lighthearted, her bright smile a stark contrast to the gravity of their situation. Life is too short for moping. I just miss. Ruby, a middle-aged woman with soft features and warm skin, broke her train of thought, halting the joviality. Her voice trembled slightly. I miss my daughter's laugh. She's the brightest part of my day. The room shifted, as if an invisible thread had been pulled taut. The laughter faded into shared glances of understanding, a flicker of warmth illuminating the shadows cast in uncertainty. I miss the trees in the park, Chloe began, a quiver in her voice as she felt the weight of her own memories clawing at the edges of her resolve. The way the leaves dance in the wind as I jog past. It's always been liberating. Her eyes fell on Othello, who appeared impassive. What about you, Othello? The room collectively held its breath. Othello sighed, running a hand through his hair, then reluctantly pushed himself off the wall. I miss... He paused, his expression shadowed beneath layers of guardedness. I miss the ease. You know, the unknowing, the not worrying about the shadows of your past catching up to you. A silent tension buzzed in the air, a palpable connection anchoring Chloe closer to him. Embers ignited in her chest as she caught his gaze, an electric intensity that spoke of hidden sorrows. Had he been sharing all this while? Just then, Marcus interjected, breaking the gaze. Ease? So that's what you're calling it, huh? Because I was starting to think you're secretly an assassin. The chuckle struggled to escape his throat, attempting to reclaim the room's lightness. Oh, please, Kelly responded, rolling her eyes, more like an overworked accountant. There were murmurs of agreement, laughter bubbling back up as the heaviness lifted slightly. But amidst the laughter, tension threatened to turn. Chloe's eyes zeroed in on Othello, whose guarded wall seemed to flicker as he met her unwavering gaze. Look, if we're sharing things, Othello started, his voice gravely but steady, I might as well confess. I care about family as much as the next guy, but I've destroyed bonds that mattered once. His confession lingered in the air. The playful atmosphere sank, the gravity of regret anchoring their spirits. Why are you bringing this up now, Othello? Chloe's voice broke through the tension, confusion mixing with something closer to anger. Are you blaming yourself for being trapped here? No, he replied, tone firm and defiant. This is about honesty. At that moment, the world around them faded. All that existed was the two of them. Chloe's heart was racing, each pulse thumping louder as her awareness of him deepened. The air thickened and the atmosphere caught fire, igniting an impulse she didn't understand. Almost instinctively, she stepped closer, the unyielding tension morphing. Othello stood rigid, unwilling yet unable to avert his gaze. With a trembling breath, she whispered, You're more than you think, Othello. In an electrifying heartbeat, understanding passed through them, leading to an unspoken agreement that hung in the air between them. The rest of the world dissipated, the chaos fading into whispers as their lips inched closer, a careful, uncertain dance moving as if choreographed by fate itself, before they were pulled back by the sudden sound of barking orders outside. Duck! A violent explosion of sound shattered their fragile moment, the warehouse shuddering as chaos erupted all around them. Stay together. Move now. And just like that, the romantic crescendo faded, swallowed by the fragments of reality, tensions flaring back into the damning weight of danger. Chloe glanced at Othello, uncertainty flickering in her eyes as adrenaline flooded their veins. This was only the beginning. Scene 27. A dangerous game. The midday sun hung lazily in the sky, blazing down upon the meticulously manicured lawns of Huxley Enterprises. The air shimmered with heat, and a palpable tension permeated the expansive terrace overlooking the city. Chloe Carver stood poised with a tray in hand, balancing an assortment of delicate hors d'oeuvres. Her eyes flitted between the guests milling about, each one representing the heights of ambition, success, and an unspoken rivalry. After a decade of catering to their whims, Chloe projected confidence, yet her heart raced, echoing the emotional weight of today's task. Beneath the laughter and clinking glasses, but one word lingered between the gathering: opportunity. Chloe had meticulously planned this event, a showcase for her catering business, especially since her family's reputation had all but crumbled in the past. As she focused on arranging a platter of bright orange mango slices coated with lime zest, she couldn't shake the tension tightening her chest. Their glances were sharp, their criticisms contracted in smiles. No one seemed more aware of this game than Othello Huxley, who hovered at the edge like a sentinel, the embodiment of watchfulness. Othello, Chloe acknowledged, her tone lighter than the weight in her chest. He caught her gaze, and for a moment the chaos of the social affair faded, a fold of silence wrapping around them. His presence was a balm and a burn. Unbidden thoughts of betrayal flickered like candle flames in her mind. "Still breathing, I see," Othello replied, his voice low yet teasing. Still dressed sharply in dark navy, he exuded confidence, casting shadows over the indecision that brewed inside her. "Barely. Do you think they can taste my fear through the crab cakes?" Chloe retorted, a wry smile curling her lips, yet the effort felt heavy, her nerves flickering like the sunlight reflecting off the polished glassware. He leaned closer, his smile shifting to something softer yet more intense. "What do they know of fear?" he mused, looking around at their high-profile guests. "They thrive on it, but we're more than them. You'll show them what you're worth." As their eyes locked, tension thickened the air, each heartbeat amplified between them. Othello's words weren't just encouraging, they were a challenge. She felt the unsteady pulse of her heart, drumming the nuances of the past betrayal, anger, and a flicker of something warmer. "This is your moment, Chloe. Own it," he said, and just for an instant, their laughter blended with the rising crescendo of the chatter around them. Yet, the moment was pierced like a fragile bubble when a pair of boisterous guests collided into Othello's space, cheering and mingling as if they hadn't heard the quiet conversation. "The master of the house, right?" One of them laughed, oblivious of the tension. "Gonna make a move tonight?" Chloe felt her stomach twist. Othello's jaw tightened, but he masked it with a charming smile. "Evening's young," he said, casting a sidelong glance at her, the unspoken weight brimming in the gap they shared. The disruption hovered dangerously close, an enemy within their own territory. She could feel heat rise to her cheeks, not just from the guests, but the challenge, as her pulse quickened amid the laughter and indifference. "Let's show them what we've got," Chloe said, trying to maintain her bravado as she regained composure. But the playful banter didn't land light on her heart. It tethered them together against the world that constantly threatened to engulf them. Othello stepped in closer again, shielded them from the crowd, a ground so fragile that their bond felt both fortified and strained. "I won't let them undermine you," he whispered, his breath barely brushing her ear, igniting memories of fire and ice, trust and betrayal. And in that breath, the world blurred, the sounds faded, focusing only on the magnetic pull between them, unfulfilled desires and whispered truths lingering unvoiced. It felt as if every guest was as distant as a passing cloud, and all that existed was the intensity of their connection. "Are we playing a game, then?" Chloe challenged, her voice thick with the potent mixture of trepidation and thrill. Othello leaned closer, eyes shimmering with the promise of a deeper conversation they were both avoiding. "Just be careful who you invite to play," he murmured. As she met the intensity of his gaze, time slowed, a soft invitation, a collision of past grievances and undeniable attraction. For an unmarked moment, a breath hesitated in the air between them. The warmth of Othello enveloped her. Their world narrowed to the thudding pulse of connection, longing, and truths tangled together like the fine lace of her dress. In the silence that followed, their lips intersected, sparked with electricity. The kiss was tentative, hungry, and full of everything they left unsaid, a bridge over a chasm of betrayal. But as swiftly as it ignited, Chloe pulled away, breathless. "Let's not make the evening too easy for them, shall we?" she quipped, regaining her witty facade, though her heart still danced under the weight of the moment. Othello's smile was enigmatic, teasing at the corners of his mouth, but it revealed the depth of understanding between them. Then let the games begin. Scene 28. The Cost of Love. In the dim light of the warehouse, a gentle drizzle drummed against the steel roof, echoing like unsteady heartbeats. The scent of iron and wet concrete mixed with the faintest hint of regret that lingered in the air. Chloe Carver leaned against a crate, her brow furrowed in concentration, her fingers tracing the jagged edge of the wood as if it held the answers to her questions. The evening's tumult was buzzing chaos, simmering just beneath the surface, more real than the reality pressing in around her. "Chloe, we should check the perimeter again," Othello Huxley suggested, his voice low, yet grounded, vibrating through her. The weather mirrored the turmoil within, one moment stormy, the next tranquil, yet a constant undercurrent of energy whipped between them. She glanced at him, a pulse racing in her chest as his intensity flickered with a fire that she thought long extinguished. "We can't afford to miss anything," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Exhaling deeply, she tried to push aside the weight of memory, the 10 years since that call she'd received, which changed everything, the sound of her father's voice trembling, the sting of betrayal. Every minute, we're risking it all. For them, for us. Othello held her gaze, his dark eyes impenetrable, yet inviting. She could see the shadows march across his features, a storm gathering. A symphony of dimly lit shadows played against the walls, pulsing with the weight of their shared history. "Well, maybe if we hadn't been trapped together in this nightmare, I wouldn't have to weigh the cost of feeling anything at all," she shot back, anger flaring briefly, covering the vulnerability she felt creeping in. "Is that what you think?" Othello retorted, taking a step closer, the space between them shrinking as if magnetized. "That I forced you into this?" Chloe inhaled sharply, feeling the heat radiate from his body, obliterating the chill creeping through her. "It's easier to be angry than afraid, Othello. We both know that." "Let's not make this the next chapter of a tragic story," he said, voice softening. "What happened 10 years ago doesn't have to repeat itself." Outside, a thunderclap rattled the structure, as if the universe was clamoring for a reaction. Chloe's heart thrummed in her chest, the sound of impending rain suddenly feeling like a gathering storm of memories clashing within her. Truth battled with longing, each thrust palpable in the cool, damp air. "Do you think it's too late?" She felt her walls falter, the cracks showing where emotional mortar had once held them steady. "Chloe," he moved closer, "stop pretending that we can keep hiding from what we feel, especially now." The tension in the air thickened, both daring and inviting, as though they were suspended at the edge of a precipice, breaths mingling like wisps of smoke. The patter of rain intensified, cascading down the windows, foreshadowing an emotional storm paralleling their moment. "Every time I think about," she began, halting as uncertainty gripped her, locking her words inside, fear cutting through the moment like a dagger. Would she choose anger or love? "What?" Othello pressed, his voice soft yet relentless. "Every time you think about what? About the price of what we've lost, or what we could still have." His intensity caused a tidal wave of emotion to crash within her, and suddenly the distance between them felt impossibly small. "If I let you back in, everything I've built will come crumbling down," she murmured, brave enough to express the weight of those years. "Or maybe it will transform." He reached out, brushing a loose curl from her face, his fingertips hovering too close to the tender skin of her cheek. As the warmth of his touch seeped through her, the world outside dimmed into a soft chaos, the rain now a soothing rhythm. Chloe leaned in, drawn by the gravity of the moment. Everything they had fought against, every argument, every unresolved glance converging into this instant. "Chloe," he whispered, closing the distance, anticipation humming between them. Then it happened, a collision of yearning and reality, their lips meeting softly but tingling with unspent passion. The kiss broke barriers she thought she could never breach, everything coalescing into a breathtaking crescendo. But just as it peaked, the sound of footsteps echoed from the door at the far end of the warehouse, slicing through the moment like a blade. "Chloe, you in here?" a voice yelled. It belonged to Marissa, one of Chloe's friends, oblivious to what had just transpired. Chloe stepped back abruptly, breathless, heart racing as she whispered, "We're not safe yet." As the shadows deepened, Othello's hand remained suspended in the air, fingers tentatively reaching for hers before falling back. A silent promise echoed between them, charged and unfinished, as if both had glimpsed a future yet to be tempered by trials. "Let's get ready," Othello said, determination sparking in his eyes, but the unspoken question lingered heavily in the air. At what cost? Love or hatred? Scene 29, Sacrifices Made. The faint sound of water dripping echoed through the dimly lit basement, a relentless reminder of the fragile situation at hand. Boxes stacked haphazardly against one wall emitted a musty odor, mingling with the distant hints of sweat and fear. Othello Huxley stood near the flickering light bulb that dangled precariously from the ceiling, casting a trembling glow on the motley crew gathered in the shadows. Their heaving breaths and anxious whispers mingled like a storm brewing just inside. Chloe Carver paced near the far end of the room, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "We need to figure out a way out of here," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. The tension in the air was palpable as the others exchanged wary glances, their eyes darting to the front of the basement where the entrance lay barred. "Easy for you to say," one of the other hostages piped up, his voice laced with frustration. "You don't have a plan." "Yeah, but neither do you," Chloe shot back, the fire of determination igniting in her eyes. Othello watched the way her emotions played across her features, the resilience in her stance and the curve of her lips as she held her ground. The sight stirred something within him, a flicker of what used to be. Beneath the adrenaline, old memories washed over him like an unwelcome tide. "We can't just wait around for bad luck to strike," he finally interjected, tilting his head slightly as he sought the momentum of command. "Look, I'll go check the entrance." A ripple of shock spread through the group. They were used to playing it safe, but Othello was a different kind of man. Chloe stepped closer, her voice soft yet firm. "It's not worth the risk. We need to hold together, not shove someone out into the unknown." "Someone has to be brave," Othello replied, meeting her gaze. The room seemed to hold its breath as the silence swelled, punctuated only by the far-off sound of sirens, a reminder of the chaos brewing outside. "I'll be quick, I promise." "You're stubborn, you know that?" Chloe accused, a half-smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. A flicker of admiration glimmered in her eyes, nearly merging with worry. "I learned from the best," he countered, and in that absurd moment they both slipped into a world of shared history. Before Chloe could respond, Othello turned on his heel and approached the barred door. The others watched, uncertainty festering amongst them, whispering frightened words cloaked in envy. Could this bold act serve to save them, or entice something darker? With a shove, Othello forced the door open slightly. The hinges creaked as though groaning under the weight of the moment. He glanced back at the group, the tension in his shoulders taut. Just as the sunlight slipped through the crack, illuminating his figure, a desperate shout echoed from the entrance. "Stop!" A well-built man with wild eyes lunged toward Othello, rage seeping from every pore. The sound of heavy footsteps thundered through the basement, and instinct kicked in. Othello leaped to the side, barely dodging the armed intruder. Chloe's heart raced as she scrambled to grab a metal pipe that lay discarded nearby. "Get down!" she yelled, swinging it with raw determination. The pipe connected with the assailant's knees, sending him sprawling forward. "Chloe!" Othello shouted, dodging another wild swing aimed at him. The two of them moved like a choreographed dance, a rhythm honed by years of surface-level interactions suddenly igniting into something deeper. "Go!" Othello shouted over the commotion, adrenaline propelling him forward as he engaged the man in a grapple, both slipping and sliding on the cold concrete like dancers on an uneven stage. "I've got him!" Chloe inhaled sharply, the weight of what was unfolding unfurling within her chest. With one decisive motion, she swung at the man again, catching him off guard, allowing Othello the upper hand. In that fleeting moment, time slowed, their eyes locked, a flash of understanding flickering between them, illuminated by the shared urgency of survival. "You'd risk it all for me?" Chloe asked, breathless, the thought sending ripples of confusion through her heart. "Anything," Othello said, pushing the man away. The fight burst anew, sudden and chaotic, but both found solace in the connection they formed in the midst of the turmoil. As the scuffle settled into quietness, neither could ignore the truth that now echoed louder than the sirens outside. Sacrifices weren't just made for survival, sometimes they opened a doorway to the heart. Scene 30. Critical choices. Chloe's breath quickened as the echoes of a distant argument reverberated through the dimly lit warehouse. The air, thick with tension and the metallic scent of fear, enveloped her as she moved instinctively closer to Othello. Moments ago they had been arguing, a cacophony of angry voices swirling around them. But now, with danger looming, their skirmish quieted into an electric silence. "Do you think they'll find us here?" Othello murmured, his eyes scanning the shadows, betraying none of his deeper fears, but filled with a fierce intensity that pulled at her. Chloe felt a pang in her chest. With each upward flicker of her heart, she was reminded of how far they had come since the fateful day their lives entwined. She caught his gaze, piercing and intense, and felt a warmth bloom in her core, overshadowing the chaos outside. "If they do, it won't be good for either of us," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt, aware of the truth that skated just beneath the surface of their confrontation. "But you know that already." Silence thickened in the air around them like a promise or a threat. A moment of quiet lapsed between them, drawing long like a thread pulled tight. "They're ruthless," he said finally, glancing toward the peeling paint of the wall. "You should think of yourself first. Get out if you can." Chloe's pulse thrummed loudly in her ears, insistently pushing her to consider his advice, her heart lurching at the thought of leaving him behind. "But what about you?" she countered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't just abandon you to whatever they have planned." A sharp, wry smile appeared on his lips, but it held no humor. "You have to look out for yourself, Chloe. It's the only way." His hand brushed against hers, a fleeting but electric connection that made her stomach flutter wildly. As if a spell had been cast, time slowed between them, the air thickening with unspoken emotions, the past clashing with the present. The war in the form of veiled memories and accusations waged inside her mind, and she's swallowing hard against the weight of possibilities. "Why do you always do this?" she blurted, nearly breathless. "Why do you shove people away? You think you're saving me, but all you're doing is pushing me toward the very thing you fear." A shadow of uncertainty flickered across his face, brief yet profound. "Don't you see? If I fail—" He trailed off, his worry morphing into an urgency as the distance widened between their breaths. He leaned closer, just a breath apart. "You have a chance, Chloe. I'm not worth the risk." She hesitated, struggling to hold his gaze, wanting to bridge the space looming over them. Each heartbeat pulsed with possibilities. Will they fight against the world together, or would she follow her instincts to flee? "You are worth it," she breathed, her words thick with passion and defiance. "I wouldn't be here if you weren't. I can't just abandon you. I won't." The tension shifted around them, changing the very fabric of their situation. In that moment, Chloe made her choice, a critical juncture where love slid into the pathway of bravery. Her lips parted slightly, an invitation and a challenge. With his heart pounding in sync with the world falling apart around them, Othello drew closer. The weight of unspoken words hung between them, confessions of love, pain, and forgiveness swirling like smoke in the air. "Then together," he declared, the fierceness of his voice clashing against the quiet. Chloe nodded, her hand finding his, grasping tighter as if to hold on to their shared destiny. Even with fear gnawing at their edges, they faced the uncertainty ahead together, emboldened by a connection neither had anticipated. "Whatever happens," she whispered, holding on to him as though he were a lifeline. "We do this as one." But just as the binding silence was about to snap under the weight of their resolve, a sudden noise, a clatter from outside, shredded the air, awakening their hearts from a suspended moment. "Chloe! Othello!" a voice yelled, muffled and desperate, pulling them back to reality. "I can't let them take you," Chloe said, her eyes locking onto Othello's with fierce determination. As the walls around them came alive with chaos, she clenched his hand. Love for him churned afresh, overshadowing past grievances, softening her heart. He met her gaze, fervent with fierce protectiveness, as the world outside crumpled into disarray. A choice made, a pact formed. Now they would have to fight together. Scene 31, Rescue Operation. The thick, stale air crackled with tension as Chloe Carver pressed her back against the cold wall of the dimly lit room, her keen mind racing against the sound of sliding doors and hurried footsteps outside. The fluorescent bulbs flickered uncertainly overhead, casting sporadic shadows that danced like ghosts around her. Othello Huxley stood beside her, a silent fortress, his body taut with pent-up energy, yet they were cocooned in an almost unbearable stillness, each waiting for the other to move first. Chloe's mind flashed back to the last time she'd felt this level of uncertainty, standing at her father's old office, where dreams had turned to ash. "Now here we are," she murmured, eyes fixed on the doorway, "back in the game." The lingering regret in her tone made Othello glance sideways, his impassive facade unable to mask the intensity in his gaze. "Whatever happens," Othello stated, his voice low and steady, "you stick with me. We're getting out." His eyes held the promise of ironclad resolve, but beneath that steely demeanor lay a tension that was unmistakable, a hint of vulnerability that only she could perceive.